agreed to this, or does it happen?
Well, you as voters agreed to
But
the
you
budget.
implement it.
Right. We're still trying to figure out exactly how the implementation didn't go exactly as we had planned it. That's kind of the best answer I have at this point. And like I said, it's not something that we're done discussing. I just don't know if the budget portion of David's DPW is the right form for that. And like I said, some of this discussion may go into executive. Yep.
Just a procedural question.
Sure.
When a department head wants to increase someone's salary, do the select board people have to sign off on that before the numbers get changed by?
I discuss it with all these guys.
Right, no, but I mean, but at some point, if you're gonna give me a dime more an hour, does my name go on a piece of paper with that increase, and then one of these guys will signs off on it, and then it goes somewhere to be processed? Is that the way it works now?
Is that a requirement? That's how it works practically. I'm not sure if there's a written procedure for that.
That's only the people that aren't elected.
Yeah.
Isn't that people that are not elected supposed to know?
So if you have that in place, if you have something like that in place where someone has to physically sign off on it before someone can change a number in the payroll system, it should be fixed.
I think what we may have experienced is a failure due to the lack of that sort of process being in place. So,
Who's elected is different, isn't it?
It is different for elected officials.
They can write their own, not just kidding.
Well, you may be kidding, but actually,
You probably could.
the selectmen do not control the compensation of elected officials,
Right,
except through overall budgetary
right.
control that we actually see to the voters. We might make a recommendation about the treasurer's compensation.
right.
But it's actually the voters who approve or disapprove. And within that, the voters are actually only, it's just a contentious for me anyway, the voters are actually only approving the overall budget for that department. So the elected official has the authority in the state of New Hampshire to set compensation and hours outside of any approval or disapproval from us, including the voting body. Now, of course, you register your approval or disapproval at the ballot box of the subsequent year. But it is a little, it's intended by the founders to preserve the independence of officers, town clerk, tax collector, treasurer primarily.
If you do have a highway, if you have a highway supervisor, like David was at one point,
If not,
the road agent, you can, the selectmen, even though they were elected, the selectmen can set wages for that.
So a quick question, and this kind of goes back to the entirety of wages. Did you guys do any what-ifs if you moved, if you added a full-time person? Because I see this big, I see a huge chunk of overtime wages. That's a big number. And I guess if I were looking at that in my business, I'd say, if I'm spending what I'm spending in full-time wages, not quite that much. If I'm spending a considerable amount of money, do I benefit by having another full-time person or another part-time person, and now I'm cutting down on my overtime?
Most of this overtime is due to snow and ice,
Which means it's
most of the overtime.
Time of day, it's not due to the number of hours.
Actually, it's due to the number of hours, because we have to work over 40 in order to get time in half.
Okay.
No matter whether it's.
But the storms may go on for 2 or 3 days.
Understand.
So I guess.
And you only have so many trucks.
I understand.
I guess the only thing would be is, I know where you're kind of going with that, is a policy for you guys is saying, okay, fine, if you come in at 3 o'clock in the morning, the storm is over at 2 o'clock, and, you know, you go home at 2 o'clock instead of going home at 4 o'clock when you're supposed to. Is that where you're going on that, or?
There could be something like that. Things could be sort of work seasonally to keep those numbers from increasing, or is there some other balance? I guess my question is just this: anything like that been looked at yet.
Would you like to plow snow?
You-
Boy, am I gonna feel for you.
None of your mailboxes will thank me for it.
What does that mean?
No, but I guess I'm just saying is anytime I've had a high percentage of either part-time, if my part-time number's higher or my overtime number is high, then I want to balance it out and see. I guess that's my question.
Yeah, the few things that we've looked at is possibly school bus runs and stuff. You know, strictly the school bus runs. Right now, I'm working on those numbers with David. Whether we can just run one truck early in the morning, get the roads open enough, because some of the roads that buses travel on are state highways. And we don't have to worry about them. So it's just trying to get all that stuff together right now, which could cut down the overtime. Instead of coming in at 3 o'clock, you can come in at 4 or 5 o'clock and get the roads open for the people. So that's the only one spot that I know of that you could really possibly shave a little time off of, but it's not gonna be a considerable amount.
And the other thing, I mean, we did have overtime in summer too, right?
There was
Very little.
very little, but it was mostly we were hauling the sand because we couldn't get it out of the way fast enough.
And as soon as the sand was done, we were done.
What other tasks are you doing in the wintertime when you're not plowing?
Boatloads of maintenance, trying, just keeping everything greased, tightened, changed. Lots of times we'll just take our trucks outside, they're all clean, run the chains, you'll find broken flight bars. Now you gotta take the chain, you gotta get that truck back inside, get everything cleaned and ground, and weld all that stuff back together, because if one of them flight bars breaks during the storm, you're done. The truck's down. So all that stuff after a storm, every storm we do that. Sometimes we don't catch it, but 90% of the time we do. And, greasing and it's made, it's all the same all the time. You've got to stay on top of it. That's why our trucks last for 20 years.
Has any consideration been given to starting the winter hours earlier instead of December because we have storms in November?
We try to start it when we watch weather. And if we see storms coming, that's when we try to start our. Last year, I guess we got screwed up a little bit and we were behind, but it normally doesn't happen like that. We're on the ball and go. So, if you want us to start in October, 5 days a week, we'll do that. We don't care. It's 40 hours when we work it. And only we go home at 2 o'clock in the afternoon instead of 4 o'clock. Which is fine. Don't mind. Tell us what you want.
Dave, do you have two people that, I mean, how many trucks do we have to plow? Two?
That we plow with?
Well, you got the smaller trucks too.
5.
And you hired someone part-time last year to do some plowing?
No.
No snow
With our
plowing?
truck.
Right.
Right, yes.
So when you,
Keith Short runs the international, that runs Camp Brook, Crack Road, all local now.
so is he taking over on a time when someone else goes home? Is that?
No, he comes in with everybody, because that's his whole separate route. And if we come in at 3 o'clock in the morning, it takes me 5.5 to 6 hours to make one complete run. That's plow it and get spots in, and that's it. Before the storms, we go out and pre-salt, which takes 2 to 3 hours. With the trucks we have, the 2 Dodges we have now, they will carry a little more, so I can cut that time down a little bit, because I should be able to do 1 load versus 2 trains.
All right. Well, we're not making it anywhere except through DPW. We still have some other things in here, correct? Want to talk about
Parks and Rec and
sanitation? Okay.
which is pretty much unchanged, both of them.
Right. And we have a, let me see, 39. Okay.
On sanitation, like the truck is getting a little on the old side, so I bumped that up a little bit for sanitation vehicle repairs, from $5,500 to $7,500.
Okay.
And
We
that's,
just put a new pump in that truck last week. I don't remember how much it was, but $1,400 $1,400,
It seemed like a lot.
It was not bad.
And we got that compactor service finally too.
Maybe less trips, less wear and tear on the truck.
And it looks like hazardous waste stuff, that's all recyclable stuff.
Correct, yeah. I guess we'll hold most of the numbers right along. Parks are at about the same.
Okay. All right, well, I guess my only feedback is I'd love to turn a 2.99% increase into zero. And there's $1,000 here, $1,000 there, just in money that was never spent in previous years, and looks like it might, the line for cutting edges, never spent over 3,700, why not make that a 4,000 instead of a 5,000?
Can I stop you for a second?
Go ahead.
Doug just graded 120 hours and burnt up 3 sets of edges.
Okay.
Because the roads are so darn hard. That's why. If we get rain during the year, the roads are softer. So that's a variable too. But that cutting edges is also snowplow edges, grader edges.
I get it. We've never spent that much before, that's why I'm saying.
Actually, there has been a
Yeah.
previous
Yes.
years that we have gone over that, yeah.
We've been over it.
Yeah, we've gone over a few times.
6,000.
Then we want to look at, and I'll just say a further look at DPW tools for $1,200. $1,200 always gets budgeted, zero always gets spent, maybe cut that in half. I see a big difference on here in radio repairs, $2,000 budgeted, zero spent 1 year, $1,100 the next year, maybe drop 1,000 off of that or 500 off of that. I see contract equipment and labor, 326 out of 5,000 spent 1 year, 3,377 spent the next year.
On
Maybe
that
drop
part.
that from 5 to 4,000.
Well, actually, on that.
Or
part,
increase it because you're going to use that.
We're using more of, trucks to haul the sand around and move stuff around more. Instead of using the little teaspoons, we're actually gonna use the shovel.
Okay. And then I guess what I'm looking for is some sort of maybe juggling, like we talked about, in terms of employees, whether they're full-time, part-time, or contractor, that can help us get the labor number down. And if it's possible, that's what I hope to do. That doesn't mean anybody gets fired, anybody gets a pay cut, but maybe we're not spending so much money on overtime somehow.
Don't you have
And
to,
that's usually processed.
you gotta consider though, if you turn somebody from part-time to full-time,
It's going to be benefits.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not proposing any solutions. I'm proposing, am I learning?
You are.
Yeah. I'm proposing to ask questions to see if there are some ways that we can play with these scenarios and come up with ways that might save the taxpayer more. Yes, there was a year when we spent a lot on cutting plate. I owe you.
12,000.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought
I'll
you
do
were
that, yeah.
But we've started running winter force edges on all of our plows. And they're amazing. We've got 3 years so far on the same edge.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, but it costs you a little more upfront,
Correct.
and that's where that number come in.
Right.
So, but we're still playing with these edges, so last winter was a good winter to truck work them, and they work excellent. They stay flat, they don't concave and convex like the other ones do, and
And the better shape your roads are in, the longer those blades last.
Right.
Absolutely.
If you pound W's, you're gonna get a W on a.
Okay, I get it.
and it's also we're not spending changing edges.
Exactly. And so, a lot of this stuff sounds nitpicky, but, if we can work our way through all these budgets, and we're saving $500 here, $200 here, $50, $5, is that what you were saying? You had a question.
I think she just bid $5.
Nasty habit. I believe it might have been Friday, I'm not quite sure, but I think it was Friday, and I was coming home on Pine Cliff Road. Across the street from my house, there was a mowing machine, I guess, that the sidearm goes down to mow the side. And they mowed, whoever it was, I know it wasn't you, I don't know who it was. On Franklin
No,
Road.
it was my mower, but he only.
Why he mowed in front of kind of the Buckley's house, the side of the road. He put it down, I mean, there's, this much. Why would that be mowed?
He's driving by it, why not mow it? Oh, I know, because we're road striping. We gotta get the edges all cut back and swept, so I can stripe the roads, which Monday I expect to get the call as to when that's gonna happen. And he did all of Gilson Mine Road and Mudfoot in North Road. He still has Stabrook, Hill, and all Walpole Valley.
It didn't seem like it was that far into the road where the striping would go.
Kind of looked like a patch.
It's a width of the mower.
He made 2 passes, he was making 2 passes, I told him to make 2 passes of the mower, and the mower is 5 foot, 4 foot wide, 4 foot. So,
Patch.
Does anybody have any interest in, instead of picking those nits, which I do support, brainstorming about some somewhat larger structural changes? It occurred to me that it would be an interesting exercise and maybe yield some savings to the taxpayers if we were to privatize mowing and keep that labor, recover some of that labor, skilled labor for highway projects.
That's why there's a line for $7,200 to see how far that would go with 1 year mowing.
But there was not a corresponding reduction anywhere else in.
Right.
So I appreciate that, but then I would expect to see a $7,200 reduction in OT or part-time, you know what I mean?
If you're running short on help already,
that person would be doing
Right.
the extra things on the jobs that they're supposed to be doing.
Right. So that's a question to us and the question to the voters is stuff getting done miraculously, or if we were to try it some other way.
Well, the mowing's not getting done.
Right.
So either you gotta hire someone to run the mower, which now the brush is getting so bad, we're gonna start busting equipment. So the best thing to do would be to hire a mower, go down, mow the sides of the roads, and then once we do that, then we could probably either shift somebody else from a different job or whatever and keep up with the mowing. But once you get behind the mowing with a flail, 2 different kinds of mowers. You have a flail mower, which we have, and you have a rotary mower. Rotary mowers you can hammer on a lot of stuff with. A flail mower you can't. You end up using teeth on them. As soon as you lose one tooth, it gets all out of balance and you shake the head apart.
And if you pick up a bed spring side of the road that's high buried in the bushes, you bend the whole head.
Which we did.
And we did.
Put that on our insurance, but.
Different towns approach, there's 2 different kinds of mowing. And I was actually trying to talk about ball fields
Oh,
and this
so
same
you're talking
common.
about, yes, and
And,
that's
and there are, Walpole is crawling with firms that provide this service on
everywhere.
larger and smaller scales. So I was thinking about that.
It's
When you talk about roadside mowing, different towns do it different ways. Now, this year, Walpole is experimenting with renting the machine and putting their own drivers in, which is sort of a hybrid of what they used to do, which was to rent the machine with an operator from that company you and I talked about.
Yeah.
And all that work was satisfactory. It was just, it's a balancing act. You're trying to figure out how to manage your labor resource against your financial resource. It's more expensive to do it that way, but maybe it isn't because you recovered the labor that you would have invested in that activity. Or not spent that money for that labor that.
I understand.
Now we think, David and I think that we're in a situation, I think Glenn agrees, where we're not accomplishing all the stuff the voters expect us to accomplish because we have these different demands on our staff. David and his staff are sort of, in addition to being the highway department, the Parks and Rec, the sanitation, and the town maintenance team, among other things. So I just want to think a little longer term and a little more broadly about this and wonder if we couldn't, if I need to take this on myself, I will, but not without your support. But it seems to me it'd be fairly simple to enumerate what gets mowed around here
Yeah.
in terms of grass, and get one of the 18 firms in Walpole to say, well, we will do that next year for this much money.
That's
There
one
might
thing.
be one in.
Once we get a number, then we can have an intelligent conversation about it.
Sure.
Go.
We might save a couple $100.
And the same with the roadside mowing, although that is a more complex question to answer, because it's a specialized piece of equipment. It's a somewhat more skilled activity than riding around on a lawnmower. And the consequences of failure can be fairly expensive.
Okay. And I'm gonna hop in here, Tom, but I'll give it right back to you.
Sorry.
I guess when we talk about things like the roadside mowing, and if we are now at a point, and I think we were at this point last year too,
Yeah.
were things too high to get to, then I'd have to ask why we didn't try to schedule, and maybe this is one of those things we can put in place, but let's schedule our early summer mow, or our July mow, or whatever it's gonna be on the schedule. So we're going through once, we're knocking it down, or a contractor's doing that, and then we're coming through later, and we're doing it again. So we're
Normally
reducing.
once a year is all we have to do it.
But it has to be before now.
Well, no, once a year is fine, as long as it's done once a year, doesn't matter. I mean,
But
I see guys out there mowing in the snow, actually.
Right.
And that's what we hoping to do, is get once the grass and stuff is down so you can see better,
I get it.
we can mow the bigger stuff.
But I also
Trash stuff.
what I just heard was that now it's getting to the point where it's so high, it may end up damaging our equipment.
Too big of,
Just trunks are like this versus like this.
Exactly. So these contribute to higher costs for the town. And that's why I'm saying that these types of activities, I think, should be part of the plan through the year. And they have a deadline. But those are the things we gotta look at changing, so we can reduce.
But then you're gonna have to change something else.
Yes.
That is getting done, isn't gonna get done.
sure.
Exactly. Yes, you will.
So then you take, like, was it 2 years ago we had the fire stuff? 3 years ago? 2 years ago. You guys spent probably half the rest of the summer fixing all that stuff and washing out, because this stuff.
And that's another thing, you gotta put in the warrant this year, David. I just thought of it. We're supposed to pay back the FEMA money, we don't use it, so how much is that, the article in the warrant? That's a warrant article
Yes.
in
We'll figure it out. People are getting tired.
FEMA. Okay, I'll ask you about it later.
Again, a question on the mowing, are there other, how does Marlow or other towns around here mow the sides of their roads?
Most of them do it themselves, except for Aqua hired somebody this year.
Well, do they have equipment that's equal to ours, better than ours? I mean, can we hire them?
No.
And can we, why not?
Another town,
Other towns won't come to
Why
mine.
not?
they're short of help too, so they have to pull a guy off of their work. They'll never let you borrow a machine without him.
No, not borrow it, just have,
Or even rent a machine.
use your 7,000 to have Marlowe do it, or have Hackworth do it, or have.
Right, what I'm trying to say is then they're short of help too. So they're gonna pull one of their gentlemen off, one of their workers off of a job to send them over here, they can charge us what, I mean.
I don't know.
Well, it's a concept that would
I mean,
benefit from a little analysis.
Yeah, we just investigate it. Does, I mean, and you may be correct, but maybe you're not correct. Maybe they'll say, yeah, we'll do that. I mean, we can use the $7,000. I don't know.
Because Langdon asked us to rent our mower, and we all decided that the maintenance is so high on it, we can't send it to Langdon and have them, so they bought their own mower.
So now we can hire them.
That would be nice. I don't care how it gets done, as long as it gets mowed.
Actually, I think you'll find your insurance won't cover anybody unless any town has to send a driver with their equipment.
Right.
They can't just rent out their equipment.
Well, there is a third and a fourth model, that have both been used successfully in our county. There's at least one firm in New England that rents out equipment with operators for a fixed cost per hour. And that's another division of that same company will rent the equipment only, and the town would provide an
Run the
operator.
operator.
needs to be a town employee.
That's Owens.
Oh, yeah, oh.
Owens has done it. And Walpole has done it both ways in the last 3 years. So I will talk to Jim Terrell or the selectmen and figure out how they manage to price that.
Lucky's retired.
I still see him every day.
So right.
So we'll, at least, I mean, none of these conversations ever go anywhere unless we have a number that we can analyze.
I just have one more comment, and that is, are there companies or individuals who live in Alstead who could mow for us rather than hiring somebody from Walpole? I mean, I would rather put my money into my own town. Just a statement, you know, why give Walpole people, let's give Alstead people money.
I'm with you 100%. And that's, I must have explained the scenarios improperly. When Walpole, this year Walpole is renting the equipment but using a town employee to operate it.
Right.
That's one of the models we could use here. I wasn't suggesting that we rent the equipment and employ a Walpole person to operate the equipment. We've had good luck just in the short-term experiment with a new part-time hire for grading only. And the goal is to expand that job to include roadside mowing, but not until they're caught up with the grading, and maybe that won't happen this year. But
Actually,
this guy's a good grader operator.
Actually, tomorrow he will be on Southwoods Road, and that will take care of his first round, and he'll have 130, 40 hours into one run. And 3 sets edges burnt up.
Nice to have a number, though.
Yeah.
40 hours, 150 hours to go around town once.
Yep.
It's really looking quite good,
It is.
even though that rain kind of boogered it up.
Yep, but we're here now.
Up by Moran's.
And, you know, and once we get everything smoothed up and graded up, if we can go back and start doing grader ditching, that grading job will last a whole lot longer because water will be off the road now. And, you know, it just takes people to get, you know, everything coordinated, and when you grader ditch, you need about 6 people. Because you got one in a loader, one in a grader, and you need 3 trucks at least. You need somebody to keep track of you. In order to do it efficiently.
Dave, just one other thing, when you say the trees are growing up on the side of the road, can we divide the town in half and 1 year concentrate on trees so they don't get to this point?
That's sort of what we're gonna do if we hire
Exactly.
someone, is just let them go, pick the worst spots, and have them know that, and then see
We
how
have a
far they
certain
go.
budget that we have to limit, and maybe we just need to prioritize certain things and do it in half stages or something.
You got some roads that the limbs are like this, and other roads are like this, so we'll go get that, these, and leave the next ones until the next.
Once you get caught up, you could go probably double the amount of roads than you would now. So that $7,000 will only mow a certain amount, or next year, they will be able to go further if they mow the first part and
Then it
the
wouldn't get
second
so
part. It doesn't get so bad, you can go right along, but when you start hacking down stuff, inch, 2 inches, it takes you longer.
And lots of times that stuff won't grind up, so you need to send a truck around behind it and pick up a lot of that stuff.
Nature takes care of itself, doesn't it?
All right. So I think the only last, if you guys want to do that, you got any warrants, truck thing, or?
I don't have the truck numbers, but I have a paving number for Walpole Valley Road and March Hill for next year. Figure $247,000. And that number will be less than that, but that is a budget number. Whether we do it all at once, we do it in 2 pieces. I think we ought to do it once, because we are so far behind on our paving that we gotta bite the bullet somewhere here.
Budget number or a warrant number?
It'll be a warrant article. It'll be a warrant article. And we would write it to say spend up to, and the voters would decide what that number is, and then the March voters would decide whether that passed or not. But the
Put it
record,
in 2 pieces or just one whole article?
my recommendation will be that it's a single article with a single number, as close to $250,000 as I can convince the voters to approve, so that we can start to catch up with our 10-year paving plan. The the custom around here for years has been to spend about $140,000 on paving. We're used to doing that. That doesn't seem to be painful. But the consequence of getting comfortable with a particular number and having the price of paving escalate over time is that we get behind on our plan. And we're 4 years back, I think. Now, that's aside from the debate about whether we decide these roads need to be paved or not. Almost everybody who lives on a paved road in town thinks it should be paved sooner than we get around to doing it.
Is paving cheaper now because oil prices are down, or is that related?
It seems to be related, but it's not linear. Pavement is 8% cheaper this year than last, whereas gasoline is 30% cheaper this year than last, and oil is 50% cheaper. The argument that the vendor gives is, well, it's not just oil, we have our magic stuff in there, and the cost of that is...
Profiteers.
Yeah, capitalists.
Capitalists.
We have our magic stuff in there, but we had 5 credible bids for paving this year, which usually we get 3. And they were all within a 6 or 7% range. I mean, there's a ton of competition.
Yep. And I had some that I asked several times to give me quotes, and I think like rocks, they got a brand new plant down in Keene. I thought we might be able to get a little better price. I chased him, finally I get one.
I think they're so far behind, it's not funny.
I have a question on the aside. Why is Gilson Mine Road a state road to our line and then it stops? Does anybody know the answer to that one?
That's the way it was set up years and years ago. State maintains it during the summer. Gilson maintains it during the winter.
Holy cow. So they skim coated that road
Yes.
as part of their deal.
The state, yes.
The state did that patchwork, the skin coat?
Yes, on the Gilson line on the low end. Yes. And all winter work. How that never went.
That's all I had. That's all they had budgeted for.
Dave, put in for that trade for us.
Yeah.
Try.
Thanks for speaking up, John.
Yeah, that's all I'm gonna do.
John, are you going to go to that meeting Thursday about this National Wildlife Refuge business? That's Thursday at 6 at the Keene Library. Don't forget.
What is it?
The
Silvio Conte.
federal
Oh.
fishing game wants to expand the boundaries of the Silvio Conte National Wildlife Refuge. It's controversial.
Did we confirm that a landowner had already been approached to purchase
6
their
o'clock
land?
at the Julia Library.
Yes.
In Alstead?
Yes.
Did anybody
You know
find out?
who that is?
I'm sorry, what did you just say?
I know, I'll send it to you. Yeah.
What did you just say?
That a homeowner, landowner had been approached by the federal government to purchase their land under this proposed program.
Already in Alstead?
I'm getting that secondhand, so I'll wait for people to.
We'll see it on Facebook.
Well, I have a Facebook event if anyone wants to invite their friends to it. It's named the Federal Land Grab Informational Meeting.
A little editorialized. I'm looking at it, and I'm hoping that we'll talk about it for 15 seconds to convince me to sign it.
I use steel plate to maintain traffic on
When you're doing culverts.
When I'm putting culverts on mainly the tire road, but I can also use it on the dirt road. That is the sheet of steel I need, is just under $3,000.
And it will last
Forever.
indefinitely. And I'd say this is a capital expenditure, and I will approve it.
And can you get steel cheaper than Bobby Taylor? I mean, I can check.
8 by 20 by 1.
8 by 20 by 1, yeah.
Okay.
Capital Steel has it installed. That,
And you could have used it today,
I could,
tomorrow.
I've been trying to steal the one from St. Pierre's, but they just won't give it up.
try to walk away with it.
It's hard to feel it quietly.
Way.
It weighs a little over 6,000 pounds, I can tell you.
Thank you, Carl. That'd be helpful.
Because if you can get to me fairly early, I can have Bobby order it if everybody's good with it.
I'm good with it. Wherever it comes from, as long as it doesn't cost any more than this number.
It will come out of my, money for costs, because that's basically what it's doing.
And you guys can do, of course, whatever you want.
David, when do you think you'll be doing the work on the road there, where the two black culvert things, whatever they are?
As soon as I get these pieces here.
Because without a car, they'll fall on the hole.
Otherwise, I shut the road down to divert all the traffic around the pond cliff.
Oh, thank you.
And now I just.
And Bob, you're the policeman in front of your house. You direct traffic.
You guys are shutting the Walpole Valley Road down? Yeah.
But normally I get all my pipes in when school is out. That is the normal, what I do.
That's the
So I don't have to deal with the school buses, but I'm not in that situation this year. And I can use this piece of steel for a year. But if that's the whole thing, thick enough to hold up school buses and dump trucks if they need to hold. This man,
Well, you know Andy's gonna be the one.
I do, of course.
I got one other item. Two other items.
No, just one other item. I have one.
Go ahead, you go first then.
No, I would like you to sign this, or Roger would like you to sign it. Jill just did, it is the drug paraphernalia ordinance. We already passed it, we had that meeting over there, and he got this up to me. And what I'm gonna do is put it, that started back when we had that meeting.
You get to see him?
Yeah.
I get to see his dog more. Let my dog out?
All right, so one thing I wanted to bring up was, the chief had asked me, had we given any consideration to using the state police as offered in our discussions with them? And my response back to the chief was, we have allocated funds for additional coverage. We have yet to receive a plan on how that would be implemented.
That's true.
That's just an update for you guys, so I don't know what, I would recognize his recommendation, be it with Walpole or be it with state police.
I actually
somebody
think he used somebody this weekend.
Really?
Yeah.
There was a Walpole officer at the.
Yeah, the Walpole officer.
Well, there we go.
Because,
Is that out of our appropriation for the month of August?
I did let her dog out.
I think so, because, there was a big,
David, you're trying to ask something.
I need to order, I need to have light receptacles for all these lamps replaced. What do you guys want put in there? Light receptacles for LEDs, stay with what we have, or what would you like to do? I just need some direction here.
If it were
Because
my
I want
house,
me to go do it myself.
if it were my house, they'd be LEDs.
That's not,
Well,
that's not.
The long run LED.
LED, is, they last 22
LED?
years.
What?
No, I said you're not light.
They're on way over. But I'm not far from an expert. I mean, why don't we ask somebody who knows what they're talking about instead of me?
Jack asked me today to ask what I wanted to put in there, and I told him I would ask you guys tonight, tell me what you want.
Life cycle costing on LED bulbs is the cheapest way to go in terms of replacement cost and energy use.
And as long as it's within
And
budget.
also, that was brought up by Bruce, because he's down there putting on that someday we should change all of these.
Well, right now is what I'm talking about, because half of these receptacles out here all rotted off.
Might as well try and do that.
So, if now's the time to do it, let's do it. And I will tell Jack in the morning.
Has it got a budget line associated with it?
It will go in the general government.
Is there room?
I'm sure, I don't think we spent that much on it.
Yeah, it's under budget right now.
Yeah.
The lights out there are all, taken care of.
By the Historic Society, I think.
Well, somebody was supposed to put them back years ago,
Yeah.
Right.
so.
Now, how much was our FEMA money? $6,000?
You guys will have to, you guys will have to have this meeting later. We're wearing these people out.
Yeah. Where would we spend that? I mean, the 6,000, if we don't spend it,
We
we
have to spend it on a certain portion. I
Has to
think
go.
it's Fairbrook Road, isn't it?
No.
Where was that?
Pratt Road.
Bell Hill, that bank is sliding right off into the,
Okay.
And that cost, is that a labor cost too? Do you guys bill FEMA at X number of dollars?
No, we've got the money.
We've already got the.
we've been paid, we have to do the job to give it back.
Okay.
But there is a, was it 25%?
Yeah, 25%. We've got to raise 25%.
So
That's what
that's
we would
like
be
$2,000 or
raising.
$3,000 to go with the
At
6
town
to
meeting.
pay for the job.
And 75 or whatever the amount was out of surplus because it's been carried. I've been carrying it for 2 years.
And we need, before we do this, we need all wetlands permits in place because,
So there goes the $7,500.
but that's what,
I understand.
it's in the brook.
I went to that meeting. I understand. It does need to be done.
Yes, it does.
All right, I would support that activity. Once it has numbers associated with it that we can evaluate and try to find a place for in the budget.
It's not going to be the budget, probably should be a warrant article, don't you think?
That's what I think.
Right.
But the last one, we had some, they went down the brook.
Well, that was a different project.
No, it wasn't.
More controversial.
Same brook.
Same brook, different project. And how's that holding, by the way?
Not very well.
Well, I was afraid of that.
It goes down every, well, this year it hasn't been back, we haven't had any high water, but right now we've got water in there, and it's running fairly consistent.
Are there other topics for interest of seeking, ladies and gentlemen? Have we exhausted our patience with each other once again? I think we probably have. Thank you very much. We will do this again. Same time, same station. Next week.
Just give me a call in the morning, Rock, so I know what.
it's not.
Yes.